Humans in the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we've got a tier list video for you. I know you guys love these. I enjoy doing them. They're really fun to do, all in all. Today, we're doing specifically pendulums. Yes, guys, I am on the train. I wasn't for so long, and I think part of it was I didn't really touch Yu-Gi-Oh! For a long time, and then when I finally started looking at the game more competitively, it was like 2017. We were right in the middle of the pendulum, well, not right in the middle, right at the beginning of the Link era, right after the Pendulum era, where like Pendulum Magician was the best deck. We saw the Pendulum Magician FTK. It was super fucking degenerate, super lame. I wanted no part of it. And now I've come around. I'm like, Zephyrs are really cool. I think Magispectors are cool. I like the new Draco Slayer cards. I want to mess around with those. I really like Pendulums all in all. So today we're doing a tier list for all the Pendulum archetypes that have ever existed. That means I'm not including weird archetypes like Amazonas just got 2 random pendulum cards. Ninjas have 2 random pendulum cards. Archetypes like that just don't even make sense. They're not really pendulum archetypes. They're just random archetypes that have 1 or 2. There are some archetypes that are kind of half and half, but you know, you'll see that'll reflect on their score depending on the situation. So today, looking at our tiers, there's obviously S tier, just the most broken pendulum archetypes of all time, of course. A tier, just really solid ones, but maybe not quite good enough for S tier. B tier, like solid, like you're not going to hate on it, just solid. Archetypes with little gems. These are for the pendulum archetypes that kind of just have like maybe 1 to 3 cards that are like splashable in actual good pendulum decks, but as far as their regular deck goes, it doesn't really do enough on its own. But I still can't discount the fact they have some good splashable cards. And then the duty poopy doo-doo tier. I mean, like, it go, you know, speaks for itself. So yeah, let's get into this thing. We got I think like 23 pendulum archetypes. That's more than I thought we had. So let's get into it. Starting off here, number 1, Empowered Warrior. This is an easy duty poopy doo-doo for me. I can't even tell you what a single Empowered Warrior card does, and I think that's all we need to know. Next up, we have Endymion. I think this is a solid A tier pendulum archetype. I think maybe when it first came out, I would have been tempted to put it in S tier because it did feel so strong that we've never really seen the counter mechanic really be as strong as it was in this archetype when pendulums were like a legit high tier deck at that time. But since then, they've calmed down. They haven't been as good. And part of that's been because they've been on the ban list. And that just kind of shows you even more. Some of these archetypes are going to rate higher because they have cards on the ban list. Right, because that goes to show you how good their cards are, that they're ban worthy. Next up, we have Valiants. This is a weird one. I can't put them in duty poopy doo doo. I don't think they're that bad. I would consider Little Gems, but they're not even out yet, so I don't even know if they're even that splashable. Their restriction is a real restriction. Does lock you out of summoning once you use any of their extension effects, except from extra deck or what is it, hand? No, that's not what it does. It says you can only summon, like, you can only pen summon from extra deck and, like, summon Valiants, I think, period. So it's a little bit weird, or extra deck and Valiants. So it's weird, right? It's not the perfect archetype. It has some weird restrictions. I almost wish there was an in-between tier, like a C tier here. I'm going to put it in Little Gems. And this is kind of like an in-between. Keep this in mind. I mean, like, some of their cards are just decent little extenders, like Shinonome, the main deck monster. I guess Little Gems will work. I also don't think the whole archetype really works as well as you want, so I honestly don't feel comfortable putting the whole archetype in B tier. So I think Little Gems is fine. Next we have the Ignites. I have to put Ignites in B tier. They're a weird one for me because all their cards kind of do the same exact thing, but there's so many of them, and what they do is actually pretty coherent, especially when we get the new Draco Slayer cards. There could be new builds of this that actually become like more competitive. We've seen this mess around with like some Infernoble stuff when that stuff first came out. People thought that might be the best build of the deck. And also apparently when they first came out, there was like a very quick time period, couple weeks, where they were actually very competitive, and then like, I don't even remember what it was. It might have literally been Zodiac. And then Zodiac dropped and like this deck like fell off the map because it just couldn't hang. I don't know exactly what dropped. It might have been Zodiac, might have been something else. Fill me in on that. I wasn't playing at the time, so yeah. Next up is Magispector. I'm putting this also in B tier. I'm almost tempted to put this in A tier for the sole fact that Magispector's Kirin is still banned. I will love it the one day that card gets unbanned, except for when I have to play against anybody who plays that card, because I want to use it I just don't want to play against anybody else using it. But still, I think the fact that like all of their main deck monsters are just straight up +1s is a really good thing, obviously. They also have good protection, and the fact that like when they're at full power with Kieran, they actually probably could be like a legit rogue deck. Like maybe, like legit being an iffy term, but like yeah, they could be a scary rogue deck, because if your deck isn't good at like working around their protection and a Kieran every turn, you could actually be in for some trouble. So I respect them. Also, the fact that Bunbuku becomes a very splashable normal summon in a lot of different Pendulum variants we've seen over the years. I like it a lot. Plus, it works with a new Draco Slayer card, so it gets even better coming up. Metal Foes, another really good one. I'm torn. Again, this is one of those weird ones where I almost feel like I wish there was a tier B.5 where it was right in between A and B. I kind of like this archetype. It's had its heyday in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! But I think for modern Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a little bit too weak to hand traps. And it also can have trouble with consistency at times. It's one of those archetypes that really relies on something like Magician's Souls a lot to get its advantage. And if you don't see Magician's Souls, your hand is probably just considered mediocre. But at the end of the day, the ceiling for the deck is really high. It does combine with a handful of other Pendulum archetypes really, really nicely. So I'm going to put it at the top of B tier. I don't think it's quite good enough for A tier. I really want to make sure A tier is a thing that you deserve to be in. And if not, you know, you sit where you sit. All right, next up we move to Mythical Beasts. I think this is an easy little gems, but like those little gems are pretty big. This is just one of those archetypes where the engine is just solid. We've seen obviously Jackal be an insane card. It's almost Kieran-esque in the fact that it's just like a super splashable card that once you just get it on the field, it's just like immediately pressuring your opponent, just like Kieran. Not only that, but with the Master Cerberus and stuff like Medusa seeing fringe play in some competitive builds over the years, as well as what's the bird guy? I don't even know his name, but the bird guy, it's like a compulsory evacuation device. So there's like been some fringe play here with bigger engines, but mainly it's just like the Jackal King and sometimes the Master Cerberus, although you don't see them as often anymore. Still think they're really good. I still think you can't count them out, and the little gems in there can be really solid depending on the build. Now I move to some weird ones. No, this is Performage, sorry. Performage. These are so hard to rank because they have so many cards in their deck. Half of them are Pendulum, half of them are not. It's really hard to get a full-on gauge on like how good these decks actually are. I'm going to put them... oh man, I don't even know. I might get blasted for this one. I just don't know as well, but I know they have stuff like Plush Fire, and they had Skullcrabat Joker banned for a while. I'm kind of talking about Perform Pal and Performage together. At this point, they're kind of the same archetype, you know, because they just usually work together. I'm going to put them in low A tier because, and maybe they should be high A tier, but they've had multiple cards banned. They still have cards like this guy. I don't even remember his name. What is it? Like Perform Pal Magician? Whatever his name is. He's actually a good card. You have Plush Fire. You have Skullcrabat Joker. They have multiple cards that have been banned at times. And I don't know. Like, if those cards are at 3, I don't even know how good this deck would be. People know because they play at the time, but I did not play during Pendulum era. I have to give them at least A tier. Maybe they're even deserving of S tier at full power, but it's really hard to say at this point. Moving on. Cleaforts. I think Cleaforts are low little gems. I mean, obviously, Cleaforts are not good in Yu-Gi-Oh! Anymore. Just making a towers and doing almost nothing else is just not good enough anymore in Yu-Gi-Oh! But they do still have Cleafort Genius. Or not Cleafort Genius. What's this card's name? Scout. Cleafort Scout, which is a legitimate, like, +1 card. It's not the most impactful +1 card because it usually just gets you a vanilla body that you can just pen summon to the field, which is fine. But at the end of the day, a +1 in a Pendulum deck is really good. If it's just getting you a monster, you can pen someone out because it just helps you span the board and make a bigger board altogether. So we'll take it. It's a little gem at worst, or at best. At least it's duty poopy doo-doo. Hopefully we'll stay out of there going forward. Next up, we move to Abyss Actors. I actually think Abyss Actors pass Valiance, whether it is Curtain Raiser, just being an awesome Pendulum extender that has seen play over the last 5 years as just a card that just says jump on the board. I'm a Pendulum. I help you now make in the past make Electromite before Pendulum summon. Help you make now what is it? Beyond the Pendulum, Beyond Pendulum Beyond, whatever the new one's called. Help make that before Pendulum summon. It's just a great extender for Pendulums. They also have stuff like the what is his name? Wild, the shooting guy. The guy who looks like a cowboy, but weirder. If he's destroyed, he like searches you another Abyss Actor cards. So, like, they have cards that plus you. They have cards that are solid extenders. I think they're splashable enough to consider him here. There is an argument to maybe put him in B tier as a pure archetype, but I don't even think they're B tier as a pure archetype. So the best I can do is little gems. Zephyrs! Zephyrs are A tier for sure. They are splashable in other archetypes. As a pure build, they are a rogue deck at worst. And I legitimately feel like if this deck just saw more play, more people on it, this deck would legitimately be considered like a tier 2 archetype. I really, really do. It's one of the very few Pendulum archetypes that is legitimately a good control deck. You just don't see that very often. I've got an A tier. Fuck with me. I don't care. It's A tier. Like, I just don't care. I'm moving Metal Foes up. Below Zephyros. Dark Worms, or Supreme Kings. These are like a solid splashable engine. We've seen people play Dragon Shrine and stuff like Foolish Burial just to dump Dark Worms that you get him back and you get a search for a scale. But that's the best engine's really ever going to see play, other than like the broken Starving Venom. No, it wasn't even Starving Venom. No, it was a Supreme King card. I don't even remember. The Pendulum FTK Fusion that was made use of before. From here, Symphonic Warriors. This is low little gems. I think it's probably just above Cleaforts, but no better than that. The most I've ever seen this see play in is with ABCs as a supplementary engine to help you make Cyber Dragon Infinity outside of the ABC engine, so you could just send on more negates. It's decent. I don't know if it'll be good enough, but you know, in the future, without like really good cards, I know they're getting there. They got their support, but I don't think it's enough. Whatever, we'll see. Yosenju. I'm going to say Yosenju is poopy doo-doo. The reason I say this is because only 4 cards in the archetype are Pendulum. They are not splashable at all. And this archetype, it freaking stinks. It freaking stinks like duty. It stinks like poopy, and it stinks like doo-doo. Therefore, it ends up in this tier. Pendulum Magicians are S tier. They're the best Pendulum archetype of all time. It's not close. Not only is their archetype almost as big as like Performapal or Performage individually, but like they just have so many good cards. When you go through like the Performage and Performapal archetypes, there are so many cards you're just like, this is dumb. This is just battle phase shit. Throw it in the garbage. You go through like Pendulum Magician cards, and it's like half of them are like awesome. Legitimately like really good cards. So S tier. Just the fact that Harmonizing Magician exists for them is just amazing. They have so many starters. They have extenders. They've got, you know, insane. They've got good spells and traps to take advantage of. They're S tier. They just are. Odd Eyes. I think Odd Eyes is probably A tier. I do respect them. Well, you know what? They're not as good as a pure archetype. So you know what? I'm going to move them to B tier because I almost want to put them in as like a little gems, because you have like Odd Eyes Persona Dragon, which is kind of like, fits in the same tier as like Jackal King and Kieran. If you just get them on the field, it is a negate, so you'll take that. But also the field spell's a good card that like searches you different scales. Regular Odd Eyes Dragon is good. You also have the extra deck cards of like Vortex and Absolute. And even the other one, the Synchro, I don't remember its name. Persona? No, that's Persona. What's the... I don't remember the Synchro one's name, but even that card's like a cool little extender at times to pull like a level 7 and get you into those plays. So they're cool. They're more splashable than they are pure, but I still respect that they have more cards than just like 1 or 2 splashable cards to put them in B tier. So I think that's pretty justified. Amorphage. This has to be splashable. I think because it doesn't normally contribute to your engine, I'd put him after Abyss Actor, because at least Curtain Raiser and the Wild Hope. Is it Wild Hope? That sounds right. Are like engine contributors. They help you get to your win condition. These just like are win conditions at times. Whether you're cheating out Goliath or whether you're cheating out Sloth, you know, they just end up being win condition-esque floodgates for you at the end of the day. Really solid. I can't complain. Amorphages. Nothing like as a pure deck, they're awful. God awful. Oh god. If Sloth didn't exist, this might be Duty Poopy Doo-Doo. Next we move to DDDs. This is an easy A tier for me. So like if DDDs were more no, they are splashable. You know what? Screw it. I'm putting them above Zephyras. I love Zephyras. You guys know that. But I'm going to put them above Zephyra for here. Just because they, one, are a little bit splashable using like Kepler as a good normal summon in other Pendulum decks. But also, as a pure deck, they were literally tier 1 to 1.5 formats ago. And now they're like a legitimately strong rogue deck. Tier 2 even at times. Maybe some people would argue that play it, but I think most people would say it's like the very top of rogue decks, and I respect that. Magispectors, or I'm sorry, not Magispector, Jesus, Draco Slayers, they're A tier now. I don't know if they were A tier before, and depending on how people play this deck when the new cards come out, this could be the second S tier deck on this list. I'm going to put them... I can't put them above DD. I can't put them above Zephyr right now. You know what? I'm going to put them at the end of A tier right now just because they're an unknown quantity. I believe these 4 new cards are phenomenal. I've seen multiple builds. I don't know which ones are going to stick as like the best legitimate like competitive versions to play. I do believe there could be multiple that end up sticking. Whatever does, I need to see it first, and they may jump up A tier, and depending on how good these archetypes are, or these different builds are, this could even potentially hit S tier. I don't know. We'll have to see. But like, I do think there's huge potential here. And then we get to Sulfur. I don't know, man. It's low B tier at best. No, you know what? Screw it. This is duty poopy doo-doo. Just because I want to say it one more time. But also, like, technically some of these cards are splashable. But when it comes down to it, and you look at every splashable, like, little engine card... when it comes to like Pendulum archetypes and looking at all of them across the landscape, these just are not good enough. And it's sad because this is like the newest Pendulum archetype in existence, and you look at their cards, and even though they technically are generically splashable, you're still like, they're splashable, but they're just worse than cards that came out 5 years ago. So yeah, to me that's duty poopy doo doo. And yeah, that pretty much sums up our tier list here. There's all 23. I feel pretty good about it for somebody who would not consider themselves like a pure Pendulum player, but I do definitely keep up with them, and I feel pretty good about this. I think altogether, like, makes a lot of sense. I feel pretty comfortable here. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if I'm a freaking moron for putting your favorite Pendulum archetype in the wrong tier. I'd love to hear it. No, I wouldn't, but you'll do it anyway. But yeah. I'm out of here. Thank you so much for watching, as always, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't seen other videos from me and you want to, and more stuff to come, more tier lists, deck profiles, news videos, all that stuff, and more, of course. Peace.